invitation, should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks!
What are you?
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to And I Quote, the weekly show where we introduce you to content creators of all shapes and sizes that join us from any and all corners of the nerd universe and promote their projects. I am your host, Ryan, and our guest this week is the coordinator of Ocean City. There's only one Ocean City, in my opinion. Ocean City, Maryland Comic-Con. Please welcome James Dufendach. James, welcome to the program. How are you?
Hi. I'm well. How about yourself?
I'm doing quite well, good sir. Thank you so much for being with us. We do greatly appreciate it. So to kick things off here, taking a trip to the Wayback Machine, what would you say are some of your favorite movies or TV series while you were growing up?
Oh man. One that comes to mind immediately because it has a connection with the con here very recently. I love Knight Rider. David Hasselhoff and the whole band. I love the A-Team and all that stuff because I grew up with it. But I really love Knight Rider. And as I was literally rewatching the series, just in between other things, I got a kind of a phone call out of the blue, and it looks like we're going to have a kit at Ocean City, and no one is more stoked about this than me. And I don't care if no one else cares. I do. I want my picture with Kit. So that's a big one for me. As far as movies, my favorite movies haven't changed that much. My favorite movies are, and this shows how shallow and terrible I am. Big Trouble in Little China. I'm a giant John Carpenter nerd, and not necessarily just Halloween and stuff. I really like the in-between movies like Prince of Darkness and Escape from New York and The Thing and all those movies. Those are my favorite things from him. And Commando. I love Commando and Cobra and all those really bad canon Chuck Norris films. Like Invasion USA, where they just blow up a whole town. I love it. And I guess to redeem myself, I'm also a great fan of like Blade Runner and things that have a little more substance. But my heart is in action and things blowing up, I think. So yeah, those are the things that I really grew up on. And obviously like the same as everybody else. So Star Wars and I love Star Trek: The Next Generation as a kid growing up and all that stuff too.
So for the remainder of this episode, call me Snake, and if I don't show up in the morning, call the president.
Okay.
So I'm just sorry. I'm just throwing some references your way. Just to do a little bit of my poor attempt at witty banter with my guests this week, but good picks, man. Some canon isn't exactly known for Shakespeare, but
no,
they have some moments, right? I mean, didn't a little indie film called Superman 4: The Quest for Peace come from them?
It did. In fact, hang on. Do I have a canon film down here?
Do you?
I'm a VHS collector, so I may have.
Oh
a
my
canon
goodness!
Film. I got Cobra here.
Hey.
So we talked about Cobra.
Well, you're a disease, and I'm the cure.
The cure. I do not have a canon film in the pile.
I've heard some lines from those films. My goodness gracious! Oh my goodness! Is that Jaws 3D? Oh my god!
That is Jaws 3. Here's a good one.
We have another one.
This is a hunting safety video for children, starring Jim Varney of Ernest fame. Wow. This was a weird thrift store pickup, and I had to have it. It is the strangest. Anyway, so.
Oh that's amazing. That is amazing. Yes, I actually still collect VHS tapes of some of my favorite films. I don't have any to show to you at this particular time, but it's fun collecting these things. It's a thing that we as geeks or nerds do. We just enjoy doing certain things. But so those are some good throwbacks, if you will, to certain titles of certain movies starring certain actors for the time. So going to the next thing on here, what were some of your favorite comic books growing up?
Oh, I had a lot, and there's a couple of strange ones in there, and I'll do those for. I mean, Spider-Man is what brought me into comic books. Let's be fair. I'll start with, and I think that's probably a lot of people are in those same shoes. I was a little kid. Obviously, I knew who Spider-Man was before I ever had a comic book in my hand. I used to love the show, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It was one of my favorite things, and I had toys and everything else. And we had a bookstore near me. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, called Between Books. He's still there in a smaller capacity, but at the time he had just these boxes and boxes of quarter books. And with my meager allowance, I could go in and buy these things. So I remember going in kind of the first time and just discovering these and being like, cool, and grabbing some Spider-Man books. And that was it. Like I was in. Like that was the $3 I made a week spent in that quarter bin for years. Some of the things that sort of led me to that, and the guy who owned it is a gentleman named Greg, and he's a super nice guy, and a super great guy. I like the joke that I learned to read in that store, because he would also pass me novels and be like, "Oh, did you like that? Here, actually read a real book too." I'm like, okay. But digging through the quarter bin, I would just grab things that looked interesting to me. Maybe weren't age appropriate at the time.
Oh boy.
So
that's a different corner.
Not that bad, But like, so Mike Grell's Green Arrow run, and I was really little when I was reading those, and I love them. I still love them. It's easily my favorite running argument.
Sure.
I love those first 100. And then Puma Blues, which is a really strange little black and white published by Aardvark Press, and I still don't know that I get it, but I loved it. I love the covers. I love the weird outsidery art. It definitely sort of dovetailed with my interest in like punk rock and things that I was sort of, my personality was starting to sort of from the time. And I think those all sort of came together. And then Ninja Turtles, man, I love the Ninja Turtles. I love that Eastman and Laird stuff. And then later loved the movies and the cartoons and just all of it. So those were probably my favorite things among everything else. I mean, I was reading a ton of stuff, but.
Really good choices, I must say. Any other names that stand out for you in terms of favorite comic book writers or artists?
I really loved New Mutants kind of before it went full on 90s. So I mean, it was fine then too, but I really enjoyed it, like when Bob McLeod was on it, and I really enjoyed those Sankovic covers are. I mean, come on, it's I don't need to say anything because it's all been said. Those things are mind blowing. They're insane. So those definitely were a big deal to me. G.I. Joe was kind of a big deal to me, and I wasn't even like a big fan of the toys or anything else as a kid. I was more of a Star Wars, Masters of the Universe, Transformers kid. I didn't really like Army toys too much. They were fine. I had some, like all kids did at the time, but it wasn't my go-to. But I loved the books because they were fantastic, quite honestly. Again, it's one of those. This could have so easily have been just a throwaway property, like so many of those sort of 80s toys properties that got books. Cops and Crooks got a book, and Biker Mice from Mars got a book.
Oh my gosh!
And all these things got a book. And they weren't good. Cops and Crooks is okay, but they aren't good. They sold because there were toys attached to them. But those Joe books were different. They hit a little differently. And the same thing with the same thing for a little while at least with the Transformers books. Those were insanely good. And I mean, Marvel sort of wrote the mythos for Transformers. That's you can blame them.
We blame you.
We blame you for the super expensive Dinobots I have sitting over there. But I paid a lot for them. I did
Dinobots.
My favorite. Grimlock. But no, I am definitely that portrait of an 80s child. Like all that stuff that's super popular. Of course I loved it. I lapped it up. It was best, even though a lot of it was just sort of aimed to sell me action figures. It worked. Obviously.
Obviously, if you can't see our guest's background, there's a lot of collectibles, let's say, in James's studio. Once again, we're talking with James Dufendach, the coordinator of Ocean City Comic Con here on And I Quote. Make sure you're sharing this with 200 of your closest friends. They're going to like the way they look after watching or listening to this episode. I guarantee it. So with that, exactly. With that being said, what was your first Comic-Con ever?
Okay. So again, I grew up in Wilmington. Comic-Cons when I was younger were very different than they are now. They're mostly better now. I don't have a lot of nostalgia for what they used to be. A little bit. And my first one, they used to run a little Comic Con at the Doubletree Hotel next to the Concord Mall in Wilmington, Delaware, and it was in a tiny little ballroom, and it was about 15 comic dealers pushing back issues, and if you were real lucky, they would have like the letterer from a book, and that would be your guest. And it was like $2 to get in, and you got a free comic out of the box when you came in. And my parents would basically just sort of drop me off and be like, "We'll be back in 6 hours. Walk around this tiny little ballroom for 6 hours, and here's $10." And I felt lucky for it. So again, no content, no panels, no cosplay, no, the 501st didn't show up. This is very much an old school comic show, and this is the way they sort of were, or at least the ones that I could get myself to. So those were my first shows, and listen, I loved them. At the time they were wonderful. It was so cool to be able to sort of shop for these things and actually meet somebody who worked in comics, because I mean it was a weird thing, to have that happen. It was special. But I do love what comics have become. I do love that we've sort of moved past well, it's just a collectibles flea market, and there might be one person there signing books, to something bigger and more inclusive, and just something that is content driven instead of sales driven. So those were my first shows. My first big show is probably Philadelphia.
Oh,
it would have to be, because again, I was in Wilmington.
Okay.
So yeah, it would have been Philadelphia Comic Con.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Where it's always sunny in Philadelphia. Well, maybe not. But still, are you? What was the name of the convention in Philadelphia? Are you referring to like Wizard World, or something before that or after that? Because now it's Fan Expo Philadelphia.
Sure. No, it wasn't.
Well,
Wizard
nowadays
World.
it is.
It's the original Philly Comic Con, which is out by the
Okay,
airport.
sorry.
And that was the step between sort of the big multi-genre thing and the thing I talked about, where it's a room. It's still closer to that first thing I said. And then the next one I went to that was like the big genre show would have been Wizard World Philly, I would say. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. All right. I mean, I was just trying to clarify over there.
Yeah. No, sorry about that. No.
No, it's okay, because Philadelphia, they have a lot. It's a big place. There's a lot of events that are held in that particular convention center area. So I've been there. I've seen a few things in Philadelphia. I've been when it was Wizard World. I went to the most recent show known as Fan Expo Philadelphia, and that was a great show. Fantastic. Had so much fun. The vendors were great. The crew was great. The volunteers were great. The lines moved at really good paces. I met about 90% of the people I wanted to meet. One of them I couldn't because we were running out of time, and I wanted to make sure I had made enough time to walk around the vendors area to say hello to everybody and buy some swag. So, because you can get lost in vendor or artist alley, you can just get lost.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing. So many wonderful, creative people out at these conventions. That's one of the best things, in my opinion, about going to a Comic-Con. But even so you mentioned going to Philadelphia, you mentioned going to some certain other places and other venues. Aside from your dream car, which in this case we know now is Kit, who you're going to be meeting at some point down the line, who do you hope to meet at conventions somewhere down the line in the future that you haven't met yet?
This is going to be a terrible answer. You're not going to like it. Nobody.
Okay. Straight to the point. Wonderful.
Nobody in particular. I don't really go in for autographs. It's just not really my bag. I don't really want to wait in line for to get something signed and then put it
understandable
away. If I want to meet people, it's because I kind of want to talk to them. You know what I mean? I have something to ask. Like, I'd love to meet John Carpenter, but not because I want to like convention meet him. I'd really just like to have a 5-minute conversation with the man and really just say thank you. for things. And I actually got to do that with George Romero before he passed away, and I feel very lucky. Yeah, I feel very lucky that I was able to do that.
That's a big one.
It is.
That's a big one. Yeah.
So I don't know. So the answer is there's lots and lots of people I'd love to have a conversation with, but there's nobody that I'm really chomping at the bit. Like I have to go meet these people. It's not really the way I operate at shows. I tend to just kind of walk around and obviously because I'm also there for business, I get the list out. And I'm like, okay, these are the people I have to talk to. These are people who are like vendors at my show too, and I just want to stop in and have a little FaceTime and everything else. So I have that, like, here's the work I have to get done, while I'm there. But then I just sort of wander and see who I catch up with. You know what I mean? So there isn't. I mean, I can't really think of anybody. I'd really like to meet Rucker Hauer. If I ever got the chance, I guess. And yeah, John Carpenter would be one. And I tell you what too, I almost did meet John Carpenter. I psyched myself out. So I was at a show. A buddy of mine was set up at a horror convention in Hunt Valley, and Maryland.
Monster Mania?
Yeah. And this was several years ago, and they had John Carpenter in there. And it was Sunday, and it was pretty dead. It was like into the day. And he was in the dealer hall, and my wife was with me, and she's like, well, go say hello. You know what I mean? Just go tell him. Because I was like, well, I wanted to tell him I really like his music, and I really like the movies and all this other stuff. And then I kind of went up, and I'm like, but I don't really have anything to sign, and I don't want to waste his time. You know what I mean? I kind of just, I really psyched myself out. And by the time we got back to the car and started driving home, I'm like, I'm such an idiot. I should have why didn't I just go up and be like, hey man, I just wanted to say thanks. It's really all I wanted to do. So yeah, that's my, I'm an idiot, and had a too much of a fanboy panic attack and did not get to meet John Carpenter because of it. So sorry, that was a terrible answer.
Yeah. Well, I do hope you get a chance to meet him at some point or another.
Me too.
Yeah. Whatever the case may be, if you know what I mean. So what was the first, I would say, pop culture collectible, speaking in a general sense, that you ever bought? So it could be an action figure, it could be a comic book, it could be a poster, maybe, something else, another kind of action figure, or another, like a trading card set, something like that.
Sure. I just, the funny thing about this is that they weren't collectibles when I bought them. You know what I mean? Like when they were just toys, like when I wanted them initially, because they were just still on the store on the rack. And now they're, worth a small fortune. But I guess the first thing that I really collected in a real way that I want all of these, I have to collect all of these, is probably those Series 1 Marvel cards.
Okay.
Probably with the holograms. I think those were because I'd been collecting comics and stuff, but at the time it wasn't really about collecting. It was more just about reading them. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I saved them and I put them in boxes and stuff so they'd be nice. But for the same reason I save them now, for the most part, is that I just want to be able to read them again. So I keep them nice. You know what I mean? So that they're not falling apart, so that I can pick them, so that I can pick this back up and I can read it again and not have it, break down in my hands. But yeah, the first thing that I really remember just collecting, like I need all of these, was definitely those. Or, well, I guess I stuck them on stuff. Garbage Pail Kids, because I love gross out stuff, and I loved gross out stuff when I was a little kid. So I had tons and tons of Garbage Pail Kids, but I used to like peel them and stick them on stuff too. So it wasn't really like I'm keeping these mint. I was like, no, these are awesome. There's a booger on this one. I want to stick that on my binder.
Boy, that's something else, isn't it? I digress. No, I appreciate you sharing that with us. Once again, we're talking with James Dufendach, the coordinator of Ocean City Comic Con, here on And I Quote. Make sure you're sharing this episode with all 300 of your closest friends. They're going to like the way they look after watching or listening to this episode. I guarantee it. What is one collectible that you hope to have in your collection that you don't have as of yet?
I just looked at it yesterday. I was in a buddy's toy store and I saw it. The one thing I'm really after right now is an Inhumanoids tendril. And if you've never seen this thing, it's kind of a big Cthulhu. It was a weird 80s toy line. He's big and green and awesome and has these kind of orange fangs that and as one of the 80s shticks, he has like in the top of his head, he's got that same orange plastic. So if you put a light on top of his head, the fangs, light up. Darkseid from Superpowers has the same shtick with the eyeballs. But I'd love to have that thing. It's like this big. It's like this big. I have. See if you can see him. I have Metlar, which is one of the toys from that line. He's right there.
I see it now.
I have the John Carpenter They Live sunglasses on him, but
oh my goodness gracious!
And they're
They Live sunglasses. My goodness, I'm giving you a choice. Put on these glasses or start eating that trash.
The trash can. Best fight scene in film history.
Is it though?
I think so because it's realistic. There's no karate. The guys aren't punching themselves for 20 minutes without slowing down. They get like 4 or 5 good hits in, and then both of them are exhausted and hurt, which is actually the way with real big guys are punching the crap out of each other. That's what happens. You don't get to fight for 20 minutes and you get hit in the face 4 or 5 times and you're like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like, I love that fight scene because it feels like a fight. Like it feels like someone actually fighting. It's not, multi-take roundhouse kicks and stuff. It's just, they're just sort of beating the hell out of each other.
It's a fair point. I mean, he has come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. But still, I digress. So
it's a great film. It's a great film.
Whiz. And I actually you brought this up a little bit earlier on here with regards to Monster Mania. In Hunt Valley. I went to that convention one time. Actually, I've been there, I think, twice now. But one of the times I was there, I believe it was Keith David was there. And I spoke with him and I said, listen, I really liked unfortunately, I've never seen the movie They Live. I'm sorry. I'm behind the 8 ball. Sorry. But
it's
I know him best. Somewhere. I know it's streaming somewhere. I should probably look for it when I have a moment to myself here. I know him best as the voice of Goliath from Gargoyles.
Yeah. Yeah, he did a beautiful job in that role.
Because he was great. And that show was it was different. It was different from some of the others. And it was the mythology of it. The theme song is ominous, dark, gritty. And you have these voice actors. I mean, heck, you had Xanatos being voiced by, Riker from Star Trek TNG with Jonathan Frakes. You had Demona. Speaking of Star Trek, again, Marina Sirtis is thrown in there for good measure. You had other Star Trek alumni thrown into the mix for good measure. So you're thinking to yourself, boy, they really geeked out on this cast, didn't they? Ooh, yeah. So
they did. There was some cartoons from that era, and I was a little older at the time. I was still watching them because they were cool, quite honestly. And I was a nerd, and they were very nerdy. But like stuff like that, and Batman the Animated Series, and so some of those things really laid the groundwork for sort of a lot of the cartoons that came after, and they were so different. And they weren't that formula of introduce a new character every week so we can send you another action figure, which, sorry, Motu Bros, I love Masters of the Universe, but your hallowed, cartoon from your childhood, it was only ever meant to sell you stuff. I love it too, but it's the truth. It was they introduce a new character all the time because they can get another $7 out of you for an action figure. But those, I mean, they had like real plots and felt like they had consequences, and it was different. It was grown up storytelling, and it was definitely, Gargoyles is one of those super cool things. And Keith David is a treasure, man. He's good in whatever he's doing. So of course
he's a boss.
Yeah, he's a boss.
I mean, at least in my opinion. I can't speak for everybody, but yeah, he is. Let's be honest here. We are what we are. It's just so many lines there from Goliath. I'm sorry, that's not my best impression of the character, but hey, I'm trying over here. Yeah. But even so, we bring up Batman the Animated Series. We mentioned something about Gargoyles. We mentioned something about other properties that were really, really popular during certain eras. But I got to ask you, though, this right here, PLB Comics, what exactly is PLB Comics as we are looking at this image on screen here, and how did it all come about?
So PLB is we're a small independent publishing company. We only publish our own stuff. We don't publish anybody else's stuff because we barely have time to publish our own stuff. And it is, which is the truth. So it started out with brothers Matthew and Joshua Shockley when they were very, very young, and they are giant comic fans. And they were basically, their mom bought them like a copier, and they were selling comics to their friends when they were kids. You know, they were drawing up their own comics and copying them and selling them at school. And then it sort of, you know, as they got older, it became a little more professional, and they started putting out books that were sort of anthology style. So it was several short stories inside the book, and it had some different artists and writers on it, with those two being sort of the main guys. And it was really, it's just, they kind of got with their friends and people they knew and put these together. And I met them locally down here on the shore, and they are born and raised down here. I met them locally down here, and my background is partially in sort of marketing and graphic design and some other things. And I said, hey, you know, I like the stuff you guys do, but I think that we could probably I could probably help out your online presence a little bit, and I could probably help out with some flyers a little bit, and maybe like our table presence at events. You know, can I come on board? And I mean, it's never been a paid thing. None of us have ever taken any money out of PLB. It just pays for itself, which is still fine. Which is still a big bar to hit, I feel like, when you're self-publishing. And I came on, and then I just started slowly taking more jobs. So I was like, oh, I'll give lettering a shot. I mean, I'm pretty comfortable in graphics programs. Let me try this. So I did, and I found that I kind of liked it, and I was reasonably good at it. And I said, okay, cool. And then I was like, well, you know, I did a lot of copywriting. Do you want me to start editing these? Yes. Okay. So now I'm editing scripts. And then I was like, well, I know nobody likes to color stuff right now. Do you want me to try that? So I just sort of built up. And again, you know, and you get to that point. And at one point we were publishing like 4 books a year, and we were doing tons and tons of shows. We have since slowed down quite a bit on that. Matthew Shockley, one of the founders, he has actually opened a brewery locally. It's beautiful. It's huge. It's got a restaurant attached to it. It's called, I'm going to give him a plug. It's called Burnish. If you're in the Salisbury area, you should stop by. It's fantastic. He brews a heck of a beer. But now that means he works there 26 hours a day, 24 days a week. And
does that math sound right to you in the chat?
I don't know. I'm a comic guy. I don't know anything about math. So
no, it's fine. It's literally a full-time times 1,000 type of gig.
It is. And right now he just does not have time. Sure. And we're like, no, we know. COVID sort of put the kibosh on us doing a lot of traveling. And so, you know, it kind of came down to, well, I'll travel because I like to, like, not during COVID, but like now, like I'll run and do things. But like, so Matt's not really available to me, and Josh is prefers to sort of work on books. Like, he doesn't necessarily want to do a bunch of shows and everything else. So we've slowed down a bit. We got a couple of shows coming up this year that we're going to be at. And we are still publishing right now. Josh Shockley's book called John the Swamp Dude, which is it's fun. It's a little goofy. It's a good time. It is an off-world mystery book. Ooh. With aliens and creatures and ultra violence and
oh boy,
and it's fun, and it's ridiculous, and I love it, and you should read it. It's called John the Swamp Dude. Now we've got he's working on issue 2 of John the Swamp Dude, The Last Outpost right now, which continues the issue 1, and there's a standalone John the Swamp Dude book before that. And before that, we used to, and we still do, publish a Halloween special every year. That's just, I mean, it's very EC anthology style, several spooky stories, not necessarily in continuity with the stuff we've done before. And that's sort of where that character originated. So he's got a second issue on the ongoing, and then we're going to be doing a John the Swamp Dude Tales book, which again will be an anthology book. It'll have several short stories. It'll have some guest artists. So we're still doing. We are an indie publishing company. We do put books out, real honest to goodness physical paper books. that I don't have in front of me because I'm a moron. No, I do have one in front of me.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Let's see.
That's what happens when you have a big messy room. These are actually older ones, but I just happen to have them in front of me.
Okay.
This is probably PLB's most recognizable characters, called the Fall, kind of a
Whoa! Look at that
vigilante
cover.
That's Matthew
Ooh.
Shockley's. That's one of his covers.
That looks cool.
That's another Matthew Shockley cover.
All right.
This was a gentleman, and I'm spacing his name, and I feel terrible. Sent this out of the blue. This is a multimedia piece, and he's from Chile. And he was like, "Hey, I want you to use this." He was like, "I like the book," and I was like, "Wow, this is awesome." I was like, "What do you want for it?" And he's like, I don't want anything. I just want you to use it." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm going to use it because it's super cool," So we decided to use it, but it's awesome. This is like, he showed me the process. This is like pieces of cardboard in here and all kinds. I mean, it's a very cool multimedia piece. And this is by Brandon Spicer, who's a guest artist on this book. Did that cover. So yeah, this is the Fall, and this is another Spicer cover, actually.
Oh my gosh.
So we have 5 issues of that run, and then we have another book called Gideon and Sebastian, which is a buddy cop action comedy vampire slayer book with no sparkling, I guarantee it.
I understood that reference.
Think Lethal Weapon with vampires.
Ah, got it. I'm too old for this.
There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of that in there. Okay, I get it. That sounds really cool. And the ones you just brought up a moment ago, what was it? It's called The Fall, right?
The Fall.
Those covers alone. I'm gonna pull a Futurama on you here. Shut up and take my money. I'm gonna read those, man. Those look really cool.
Well, if you go to plbcomics.com and hit the store, they're all always in print. We don't, except the Halloween issues. Once they sell out, they're done. They're one-offs. But that said, you can go to the website and get those Halloween issues for free, because we're not selling them anymore. We offer them if you check out PLB Comics around Halloween time, we actually just put up PDFs, and you can just grab them around Halloween, and that's our little treat to the world, or curse to the world, one of those things.
We'll let the individual decide for themselves.
Pretty much. So no, PLB is a lot of fun. If we get to publish comics, I mean, that's so cool. We've gotten to meet so many people. We've gotten to work with a few people that I never thought that I would work with, that I never thought that I would share a book with. You know what I mean? Greg LaRocque and Mark McKenna and Frank Percy, and we end up in these guys sort of orbit, and end up actually like professionally doing stuff. And to me, that the 14-year-old kid in me is like literally doing backflips the whole time while I'm talking to these people. You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah, I'm playing it cool and everything else, but inside my head, there's like just a screeching 14-year-old boy going, "Do you know who that is?"
It's amazing. And congratulations to you and the entire team over there at PLB Comics. That sounds so incredible. Those covers for The Fall and some of the other stories you described to us here sound fantastic. My goodness gracious. And you get to tell the stories that you want to tell.
Yeah.
You write these stories, you put together these characters, and you set up this universe for readers to be introduced to, and for someone to be able to tell the story that they want to tell, write it the way they want to write it, or put the artwork together the way the artwork is meant to be put together, is amazing, because I believe the words I'm looking for here, creative freedom.
Yes, absolutely. And
I think this is something that you and the team appreciate, right? In regards to having creative freedom rather than having to work for one of the bigger publishers.
Yeah, that's the case. So we've all done work for other publishers too. Mostly like other indie publishers. We'll contract one of us for art, or me for lettering, or whatever. But I mean, Matt and Josh and Matt are the main sort of drivers on the book. I just do all the kind of not glamorous stuff. Did you write it? No. Did you draw it? No. Then nobody cares what I did, and that's fine. I do all the other stuff. But no, and they do love it. It is creative freedom. This John the Swamp Dude book specifically with Josh, this has been something brewing around in his head for so long.
Oh.
And I mean, no one, if you would have described this book to another publisher, they wouldn't have picked it up. You know what I mean? They're not going to, because they're going to be like, well, they're going to have questions. You know, he wants to do what he wants to do, and he doesn't want to have to answer to anybody except to me sometimes when I'm just like, dude, as your editor, let me just, can I? Can I?
You may want to do X, Y, Z to make this whole thing come together. You know what I mean?
Right. But no, I mean, those guys, they want to tell the story they want to tell.
Sure.
And it's not terribly important to make money off it. And it's not terribly important to sell 50 trillion of them. What is important is that they get to take this thing that's sort of inside of them and actually birth it and bring it out and say, here, this is the thing that I wanted to do. And luckily, and it really is a bit of a blessing. Luckily, you know, everybody sort of has other work and other things to do so that they can support this habit, so that this can be, okay, this does not have to be the main driver of my mortgage. You know, this
pay
can
them bills, man.
Right. This can be something where they can just take what they really want to do and just do it and not have to worry about consequence too much. We have been very, very lucky in that PLB definitely floats itself. You know, we have not had to put money into PLB for years. It has been self-sustaining.
Mm-hmm.
Now we don't take any money out of PLB, but you know, it pays for its printing. It pays for the to go to. It pays for the hotel rooms. Occasionally, we actually get to sit down and eat at an event, which is like awesome.
Who's going to shy away from that?
Not often. You know, and I think that's wonderful, and I think, you know, there's going to be people out there too who are going to be like, well, but you also want to be able to do that for money. Of course, yes, you also want to be able to make a living on these things, but not necessarily with these. You know, this is something that it's more important, I feel, and I think they do too, to just be able to sort of put this into the world, and just the act of creation, I think, is important on those.
Right. So in a way, to sum this up, they enjoy doing it because they enjoy the art or the love of storytelling.
Sure, absolutely.
That's why they do it. You said it yourself. They don't do it so much for the fame, the money, the fortune. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's all about just telling a story. And if someone likes the story, that's great. If they don't, hey, not everything is for everybody.
And that's exactly so. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, if you know, if we do get a bunch of readers on it, awesome. But if we don't, you know, that's probably still okay.
No, it's all good. Definitely. Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we wish you and the team over there at PLB Comics the best of luck moving forward with their projects and the stories that they are going to tell us about, or share with us, I should say. So with that being said, let's address the big kahuna in the room, brothers. Yeah. So this image that we have here for you on screen, this is called Ocean City Comic-Con. Now, granted, there's a lot of places in this world called Ocean City, but there can be only one. Ocean City, in my opinion. And this is coming from a Marylander here, folks. Okay. So Ocean City, Maryland, for me, it's like a home away from home for me. Because like many of us who grew up in and around these areas, we went down to Ocean City as a family during the summertime to have fun, you know, go to the restaurants, go to the arcades, go to different events and so on and so forth. But Ocean City Comic-Con, oh boy, is this something else. So, James, Ocean City Comic-Con, how on earth did this come about, and what exactly is it?
So, we started this thing. It was, I used to work for an IT and sound company. So it's going to be a bit of a story.
Sure.
I tend to ramble. Sorry. So I worked for an IT and sound company called Surfside Sound, which is now defunct. The owner moved to the West Coast to be near his grandkids. How dare he? And he's a wonderful man. And we were doing, I was putting up projectors in the ballroom of a hotel, the Grand Hotel in Ocean City. And it's December and there's no one around. And the woman who ran sort of the event space was up there, and we knew, you know, we know each other loosely just from being around town. And she kind of had you know, in a chair with her feet up on a banquet table, chit-chatting with me while I'm up on a ladder putting this projector up. And there was a Warhammer event called Shorehammer. They do it every year. They're still doing it. The weekend before, and I was just questioning. I was like, "How did they do?" And she's like, "Oh, well, it went great," and all this other stuff. And I was like, "Cool, it'd be kind of cool to do an event in here or whatever." And she's like, "Well, it's December," and I'm like, "I know." She's like, "If you do it in December, you can kind of, if you rent a certain amount of rooms and do all this other, there's some metrics in here that you could really kind of do it for not very much." I was like, "Oh, it's kind of interesting." And we with PLB, we had been around and we had tons of friends who were vendors and other artists and a few people who we could kind of carouse to come down as guests. And so the idea started forming. So I called my wife and I was like, lovely wife, am I stupid or is this an idea that's worth pursuing? And she goes, "Am I allowed to say both?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, you are." And she goes, "Well, yeah, both. You're stupid, and also, yeah, this might be a good idea." I was like, "Okay, cool." So then I called the boys, and I said, "Hey, this could be an event that we could table at, and we wouldn't have to drive 3 hours." And that's the joke, is that we don't have to drive 3 hours to table at something. So they went, "Yeah, that'd be cool. We could do that." And so it wasn't. We scrapped together what we needed, and we had, I think, about 60 tables total, and they were 6 foot piled right next to each other. And I thought, okay, we'll get like 400 or 500 people. It'll be like a Legion Hall style show. We'll do the costume contest. There's a little breakout room so I can have a couple of panels. That'll be nice. But yeah, I'm thinking 500 on the outside. So the day comes around. We're in the hotel the night before. It's snowing.
Oh boy.
With more coming in the morning. All my vendors and stuff are all in the hotel bar with me. We're all down there. It's karaoke because they do karaoke every year about the same time.
Sure.
And I'm singing like Smith songs and like crying into my beer. And I kind of get on the mic and I'm like, "Boys and girls, I just don't think we're gonna have a lot of people. I'm really sorry." And everybody's response was kind of like, "Well, you know what? The tables were cheap, the hotels were cheap. It's off season. We didn't really have a lot to do anyway. We'll have a good time." 7 o'clock in the morning, thump, 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 thump on my hotel room door. And I'm like, "What?" And it's one of my volunteers, and they're white. And I'm like, "What is going on?" They're like, "Have you looked outside?" And I'm like, "No, is it a bunch of snow?" They're like, "Get dressed." And I'm like, "Okay." So, I get dressed and I go downstairs, and there's a line wrapping the building. We had 2,500 people around about that first year throughout the day.
What?
Yeah. And I have no idea how that happened.
That is a plethora.
That is a lot of people in a hotel. So luckily it was sort of sprinkled throughout the day because of the way the snow worked. It actually sort of worked to our advantage because earlier in the day there were people who didn't want to come because there was snow on the ground, and then as it melted, those people who had come earlier sort of left, and then we had new shifts. So it was good. Like it never felt like there was 2,500 people in the room at the same time because that would have been bad. But it was crazy, and it was just at the end of it, the conversation we had was sort of like, "Well, we can't really do this in the hotel again because it's not going to get smaller." You know what I mean? That's not the way this works. Like we're going to have more people next year. And even if we have the same amount of people next year, this is a hard space to do that many people in. And there's not really that many spaces in Ocean City to run events, believe it or not. So the discussion went a little bit like, do we bite the bullet and rent a convention center, or do we just not do this again? And I mean, it was sort of 50-50, because it's moving to a convention center from kind of a small hotel setting is a huge difference in space and money and other things. And needless to say, it's not an inexpensive notion to run a convention center. It's expensive, even if you're just renting part of it, which we did that first year there. So then we moved to the convention center, and then we had 4,000 people. And then so we expanded out in the convention center again, and then we had 6,000 people. And then we can expand it out again. And then we had 7,500 people. And so now we are the entire convention center, including the brand new space they just built. We are there's a theater attached, 1,200 seat theater attached to it, where we hold our costume contest, where we've got super art fight and it's beautiful. It's a brand new facility. It's really nice.
It's
We've got
amazing.
it's huge. We've got hundreds of vendors. You know, we have panels several panels every hour. You know, we're not super guest centric. And that's really a function of me trying to keep the door price really low, because
Sure.
in my punk rock brain, I don't want $60 tickets. You know,
No.
you know, this year I had to up it to $12, and I felt weird about it. You know, I was like, oh, that's more than I wanted to do, you know, but it's just costs have gone up for everybody, and we're no different. It's just everything's more
Sure.
expensive.
Mm.
But I mean, look, you know, if you come a family of 4 with 2 small kids, because the kids are free, 9 and under, they're free.
Oh,
If they
good to
bring a
know.
canned good and they come in costume, I knock $1 off for both things.
It's
So
true.
$2 off. So a family of 4 can walk through my doors and spend all day for $20. And once you get through my doors, none of the screenings cost anything extra. The
Really?
costume contest is free to enter. All the panels are free once you get through my doors. That's the way I want it to be cool. I want it to be fun. I want it to be something that people can just kind of take the kids to and have a good day. And of course, I want there to be a lot of shopping on the floor, and there is, because we have a lot of vendors. And I want a few guests, and we'll have a few guests. I haven't announced them yet, but we have a small handful. And so yeah, I mean, it's just really, I I want to say that I never imagined, never intended, never. This isn't really where I wanted to be. I mean, I'm not complaining. It's not a complaint, but I never had designs on running a convention center convention. You know, I always had designs on just doing a little cool thing for the area, and it's really blown up. And again, I'm very lucky, but it's a lot of work.
It's definitely not easy running any kind of business or event or a series of events during the course of a calendar year, for sure. I mean, this kind of goes to there are 2 different expressions here. You got to spend money if you want to make money, but no risk, no reward. And you and your team over there, you took a risk, and the unexpected happened, and it paid off big. And now you're getting the rewards from it. And now the show continues to grow and get bigger and bigger and expand, but you're still trying to keep everything affordable for everybody who walks through the door, and you want everyone to be having fun and bring their families, bring this, bring that, whatever. My goodness, what a heck of a story. Thank you so much
Sure.
for sharing that with us. Seriously, we're talking with James Dufendach, the coordinator of Ocean City Comic Con, because there can be only one Ocean City.
Well,
I don't care how many ocean cities there are in the world. OCMD for life. Okay.
I don't want to disparage our friends in Ocean City, New Jersey.
No offense, but
there's also a fun little con down there. It's called the OC Con, and they run a good event. So I don't want to say anything. Say anything. I don't want them to think I have any bad blood with them. I love those guys.
Sorry, this is just the host of the show, Ryan, speaking for myself. It's okay. I wasn't trying to speak for James over here.
But no, I mean, you know, and there's actually a whole new hall, and they were building it this past year. So if you've come and you saw us this past year, you would have seen there was some construction happening in the back. Well, we got a brand new whole nother hall. Basically, it's another 50% bigger than it was.
Really?
But I didn't fill it with vendors because I didn't want to thin out the audience for the vendors, and I thought the better use. There's a few more vendors in there just to sort of offset the cost, but we're giving like the 501st and the Rebel Legion and the Saber Guild, we're giving them huge swaths of space.
There you go.
So that they can really bring props and photo backgrounds and all that good stuff. And hopefully it'll also help them raise money for their charitable endeavors. And it'll just be more cool content, you know, like, and that's really what I'm about. You know, I want it to be more fun. So.
Nothing wrong with that. And Star Wars is one of the bigger fandoms in the world, so can't go wrong. You know what I mean? It's just
for sure. Yeah.
It's really amazing. Well, congratulations on all of that. Ocean City Comic Con 2022. When is it going down?
It's December the 10th. It is a 1-day show. And it starts with 10 a.m. open and 5 p.m. close. And it's right at the Roland E. Powell Convention Center, which is a very nice facility. Yeah. And you can find us online at oceancitycomiccon.com. I was a little surprised that the the address was open when I got it. And you can find us on. I'm just going to plug the whole thing. You can find us on Instagram at Ocean City Comic Con, on Facebook at Ocean City MD Comic Con, because I didn't want to confuse anybody. And then on Twitter, which I am really terrible at and very rarely put things on, you can find us at Ocean City Comic.
That is truly amazing. I actually did tag you on Twitter today, so there you go.
Oh, thank you.
No worries.
I wouldn't have seen it for days because I just never checked Twitter.
It's okay. It's okay. You're coordinating this whole machine here known as a Comic-Con, and that is not an easy thing to do. So you got a lot of irons in the fire. You got this going on over here. You got this going on over there. So we can understand if you missed a thing or two. It's understandable. You're doing a million things, man. You're doing a million things. So we sincerely thank you for sharing that story with us. Congratulations on everything, Ocean City Comic Con. I do hope to make it down there this year. I can't, confirm or deny yet. I don't know yet, but I'm going to do my best to come down there because, like I said, Ocean City MD is a home away from home for me. So it would be nice to be down there and say hello to some familiar faces.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, it's a Maryland show, so you're going to see a lot of familiar faces. We had talked backstage about a mutual friend of ours, John French, and he'll be there.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean, you're going to see a lot of people, and again, the guys from Super Art Fight, those guys, they'll be there. Like Bracco is obviously an old friend to everybody. So yeah, I mean, it'll be a lot of the usual suspects and a bunch of new people, I hope too.
Absolutely. Round up the usual suspects. Sorry, that's a reference from another film. But that came out in 1942, and that film is turning 80 this year, so we got plans for that film coming on later on down the line. But I digress. This episode of And I Quote, and every episode of And I Quote, is indeed powered by Pod Decks. Now, Pod Decks are unique interview questions as well as episode starting prompts in the palm of your very own hand. So whether you're a new podcaster or existing broadcaster looking to grow your audience, get more engagement, you're going to want to check out poddex.com. Use code Ryan10, that's RYAN10, Ryan10, to get 10% off your first order. You're not going to miss out on that opportunity. So with that being said, James, do you have a favorite thing that you do for a guy's night out?
Oh man, I am boring. So right now there are two things that I have that are sort of friends night out, not necessarily guys night out. Right now, my guys night out is I have and I'll be there Sunday. I have a bi-weekly Traveler RPG game with a bunch of the guys. Traveler.
Nerd.
Yeah, total. Smells like nerd in here. For those who don't know, Traveler is a space-based role-playing game. It's a lot of fun, and they've sort of re-released it somewhat recently. I used to play it when I was much younger and teenager, but the new version is huge and very expansive, and it's a fun game. So that's my guys' night out, as I go role-playing, and then we do trivia at the brewery once a week. This past week was all Star Wars questions. I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'll let you guess what team won. I mean,
was it your team?
So look, it was me, the guy who owns the local role-playing game store, my wife, who is a encyclopedic knowledge of all things Star Wars, especially expanded universe.
That's amazing.
It was not a contest.
Needless to say, your team, or in this case, the missus of the household, mopped the floor with the competition that night.
We actually all could have gone home and just let her be there, and I think the outcome would have been exactly the same. We were really more moral support than anything else. Yeah, I love Star Wars, and I bleed Star Wars. I will say that I love all things Star Wars, even and I'm sure I'll get hate mail, but even the new movies, I love them. Maybe not as much, but I love all my children equally. But
okay. Hey, but look, all things considered, I love Force Awakens and Rogue One.
Yeah, I love them all. Are there problems? Sure. I mean, there's problems with the old ones too, boys and girls. Be honest with yourselves. But Yeah. Anyway, I really at that point was sort of window dressing. It was really she's got the thing, and he's like halfway through questions, and she's just writing down answers, and I'm like, do I even have to look? And she's like, no, I got it. I'm like, okay, cool.
Are
Can I
you
have another beer?
are you, your friends, or your loved ones familiar with something called the Movie Trivia Schmodown?
No, what's that?
Okay, so the Movie Trivia Schmodown is the professional league of movie trivia. It is the best of the best, the elite, the best players in the world compete in this thing. Now, it goes down every week. It's the episodes that drop on Fridays, which are known as Friday Night Titans. There's 2 matches per episode, so there's not too much going on, so you're able to digest everything. They test people in all things movie trivia. They have a singles division, a teams division, an inner geekdom division, which is, the language that you and I can speak quite fluently, as well as your missus. And there's a Star Wars division, which I think the misses of your household would have a very good time, playing along at home and seeing if she can answer all these respective questions in the realm of Star Wars. They include the movies, and they just started including I want to say the television series, all the Clone Wars, all the Rebels, all the Boba Fett's, all the Mandalorian, because this is the way. So I will, after this, when you and I are in the backstage area, I will send you some links.
Yes, please do. Yeah, no,
because I think you and your loved ones would appreciate this.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll throw it her way. I mean, who knows?
You should.
I mean, this time
because the Movie Trivia Schmodown is so much fun, and I think you and your loved ones would enjoy the heck out of it.
Excellent. So yeah, anyway, the long way around the barn is that I'm really boring and don't have like wild party nights out. We sort of do what you expect a geek to be doing.
Exactly. We all got to grow up sometime.
Yeah.
But outside of that, what is your kryptonite?
Oh.
Could be anything.
So many things.
So many? Okay. Well, if you had to narrow it, if you had to narrow it down to 1, maybe 2, what would you say to that?
Oh man. I really hate people that talk in theaters. Is that okay?
I hate when people talk during the movie.
I don't know. I mean, that's my funny answer is that I'm the guy who's like, shut up. It's $17 to get in here. You can have a conversation outside for free.
Exactly. Good point.
Okay. I don't know. Bureaucracy is my I've been dealing with a bunch of that this week, and I won't get into it because it's none of it's fun.
No, sure.
But it's all just, I hate sort of what feels like needless paperwork and needless meetings and phone calls that have to go through 37 departments and stuff. I just want to do the thing.
Yeah, you don't want to have to go through so much red tape.
Right. Yeah. Right. I feel like I spend more time writing down doing the thing than actually just doing the thing.
Just do it.
Yeah. So bureaucracy is my kryptonite. I'll say that. So
there you go. And there you go. Leave it at that. Have you ever been kicked out of anything? And if so, what?
A couple of things.
You want to name one?
I will name one, and I'm not going to actually name the place or anything, but I'll kind of give an outline of the circumstances. I used to like to go see live music with friends when my younger days, punk bands and stuff mostly.
Sure.
And we were pretty rowdy, and I got kicked out of a bar for starting a fight with a bouncer. I got kicked out of a bar for friends starting fights with other people and me backing them up. I don't do those things anymore. I didn't really want to do the things then, quite honestly. They just sort of happened. So yes, I've been kicked out of a handful of clubs that I was never allowed back into, and they're all gone now. They're all different things now. So it's fine. I got the last laugh. What else have I been kicked out of? Wait, there's other things. I know there's. I got kicked off the bus as a child. Does that count for flipping off the bus driver? Does that?
There you go.
Does that count?
If you want to throw that in for good measure, sure.
Yeah, I was not able to ride the bus for a year, and
year?
My parents, and my parents had to drive me, and that was a real rotten year because let me tell you, those were not fun rides to school.
Gotcha.
My parents were
getting the third degree. Yeah.
Oh man, it was not a happy time. Yeah, I got kicked off of my school bus in the fifth grade, I want to say.
Jeez, we're learning a lot about this. We're learning a lot about James here on And I Quote. Let me tell you. Once again, we're talking with Goodness gracious. Once again, we're talking with the coordinator, I should say, of Ocean City Comic Con, James Dufendach, here on this episode of And I Quote. Make sure you're sharing this with all 500 of your closest friends. They're going to like the way they look after listening or watching this episode. I guarantee it. So if you were in charge, what 3 items would you have in the office vending machine?
Reese's Cups.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. My favorite is candy. I would
more.
say hot fries. Handicap hot fries. Everything I like. And Moxie, which is a soda. It's sort of a classic soda. They do still make it. It's a bit of an acquired taste. It's best served ice cold. If it gets warm, it's a little icky. But if it's ice cold, it's really excellent. And they don't have it around here. And the only time I ever get it is when I go up to like upstate PA. So those 3 things. Those are the things I would say.
Very well. Very well. What is one thing that people buy that you think is a total waste of money?
Trash bags. You are literally buying them to throw them out.
I really never thought of it that way, but he does have a point.
You are buying a single-use plastic to put it in a landfill. I do have a system for this, by the way.
You do?
The shopping bags you get, the plastic shopping bags you get. I have 2 little handles on the island in my kitchen. I just put them there, and at the end of the evening, after all the trash has gone into it, I tie it up and I go put it in the trash can outside.
Really?
That way it never smells, and I don't buy great large trash bags with trash sitting in my house for 2 days or whatever. Trash bags. I think they're just it's something that we've been convinced we require, and we don't.
My goodness gracious. Well, in the words of a classic PSA, the more you know. There you go. Amazing stuff. We want to take this opportunity to say thank you to James Dufendach for being our guest on And I Quote this week. James, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Where can the person watching or listening to this episode find you online and everything that you have coming up? What do you got?
Okay, so you can find Ocean City Comic Con at oceancitycomiccon.com. And then from there, you'll get links to all our social media. So you can find us on Facebook at Ocean City MD Comic Con, and you'll also have the event there as well. So please say that you're going to go to the event. It helps us out. You can find us on Twitter at Ocean City Comic. And again, I'm a little remiss on Twitter, so it might not be terribly active. Instagram, we're pretty active over there, and that's at Ocean City Comic Con. So please follow us everywhere. I tend to run, fun fact for Ocean City Comic Con, I do run occasional contests where I give stuff away on our social media pages. So if you follow them all, you have a bunch of chances to win stuff, and it's good stuff. It's issues of comics, it's autographs, it's all kinds of fun stuff. In fact, I'll be giving one. I'll be running a contest right after Free Comic Book Day, because I want to keep the free comic book magic going. And then for PLB Comics, you can find us plbcomics.com. You can find us on Facebook at PLB Comics, on Instagram at PLB Comics, and Twitter at PLB Comics. Josh has been posting a bunch of cool stuff. He's actually in process of working on John the Swamp Dude 2 right now, and has been really posting some progress things and some pages. And we've had some guest artists, guest inkers on the covers. So Frank Percy and Mark McKenna both are guest inking on the covers of the book for different variants. And those are, or I'm sorry, one's for the second book and one's for the Tales of John the Swamp Dude. So he's putting up pictures of that. So follow those, because there's fun stuff going on over there too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here with us, James. We greatly appreciate it. Once again, my name is Ryan. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5 and check out all the stuff that I'm doing there. Also, I want to let you know that if you're looking for some killer swag, go visit our friends over at theradbear.com, the best nerd brand. You want t-shirts or hoodies from your favorite properties such as Power Rangers? They got it. Something from the Neverending Story. Speaking of the 80s there, James, Never-ending Story. They got it there. They also have anime swagger over there, t-shirts, hoodies, you name it, they got it. Visit theradbear.com. Use the promo code Ryan10. That's RYAN10. Ryan10 for 10% off your order. You're not going to want to miss it. TheRadBear.com. Also, I want to let you in on something. We have a special event coming up in the next couple of weeks. It is going to be our next watch along as we celebrated most recently the 20th anniversary of Spider-Man and the 10th anniversary of Marvel's The Avengers. Star Wars, baby. Star Wars turns 45 on May 25th, 2022. How are we going to celebrate that? You guessed it, with a watch along. But here's the catch. Here's the catch. We are not going to watch the special edition of Star Wars. We are watching the original theatrical version from 1977 of Star Wars. We are going to celebrate the 45th anniversary of the OG in the best way possible. And the way we do that is with the original version, the original theatrical version of Star Wars A New Hope. So if you have access to that through a VHS, hey, bring them out. Bring out the VCRs. I mean, James, you know a thing or two about that. So bring them out. Bring out the 2003 DVD that does include the original theatrical cuts. Or if you have to find the theatrical cuts through other means, not that I condone such things, but if you have to find them, hey, go ahead and go for it. Find it, because it will be on Wednesday night, May 25th, 2022 at 8 p.m. EST right here on It's Nerd Culture. So make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. And I'm telling you, you will not regret it. So many wonderful things are coming up, and we are very, very excited to have you with us. Once again, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of And I Quote. So once again, like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that stuff. And in the meantime, stay healthy, stay strong, stay safe. And let me tell you something else. Life is better when reading. Take a look.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Join author Gary Zeiger for an animatic short film based on his breakaway Stingray novel series. Watch this animatic short based on the novel Stingray, You Can't Hide Forever at stingrayseries.com. In Stingray, You Can't Hide Forever, Captain Epsilon is putting the band back together to rescue his protege's little sister from the evil conglomerate, while keeping his state-of-the-art warship Stingray out of their hands. Watch as the adventure unfolds in the groundbreaking animatic short at stingrayseries.com. Then, join the crew of Stingray with the next novel in the series, Stingray Prophecy, where Captain Epsilon and Dr. Zubre are pivotal players in an ancient prophecy. Can they reunite the people of two worlds before they destroy each other? To learn more, visit stingrayseries.com. Author Cindy Kep is writing on the edge. Books include Remnant in the Stars, The Loudest Actions, Lines of Succession, Mindstorm, Condemned Courier, the Yerushalayim series, and Animal Eye. Find author Cindy Koepp at CKOEPP.com today.